hate people thinking that I'm lazy. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's PCOS for short.
On the glossy, overproduced surface of reality TV, some stories look simple. They're packaged for easy consumption. Clear heroes, villains, and story arcs that fit neatly into an hour. We watch, we judge, we tweet, and we move on. For over a decade, millions have watched Whitney Way Thore on My Big Fat Fabulous Life, seeing a woman who is unapologetically herself, a beacon of body positivity, a dancer who refuses to be told she can't. But that's the surface. That's the edit. Beyond the cameras, the catchphrases, and the carefully constructed storylines lies a story of immense personal struggle that few truly understand. This isn't just about a number on a scale or a dance class. This is a story about a war being waged inside a body that has refused to cooperate since she was a teenager. It's about a mind that has been pushed to the brink by grief, shame, and the relentless glare of the public eye. The life of Whitney Way Thore is indeed tragic, but the tragedy isn't her weight. It's the invisible battles she has fought every single day, long before the cameras started rolling and long after they turn off. And it's a story that is far more complex, heartbreaking, and ultimately more inspiring than you think. What if the villain in Whitney Way Thore's story was never her weight? What if the real antagonist was an invisible, incurable hormonal disorder that hijacked her body in her teens? A disorder that's intrinsically linked to depression, anxiety, and disordered eating. And what if the greatest tragedy of her life had nothing to do with her health at all, but a devastating loss that would irrevocably change her, leading to a physical transformation born not of diet or desire, but of pure, unadulterated grief? The truth of her journey has been obscured by the very fame that was meant to celebrate her. To really get the depth of Whitney's private struggles, you first have to understand the public persona that captured the world's attention. Back in 2014, a video titled "A Fat Girl Dancing" went viral on YouTube. It showed a joyous, incredibly talented woman moving with a freedom and skill that a lot of people, conditioned by societal biases, just didn't expect from someone of her size. That woman was Whitney. She wasn't just dancing, she was making a statement. She was reclaiming an activity she loved, one that society often implicitly reserves for smaller bodies. The video was an explosion of defiance and self-love, and it resonated with millions. This viral moment was the launching pad for My Big Fat Fabulous Life, which premiered on TLC in 2015. The show's premise was built around this very persona. Whitney, a woman weighing 385 pounds, determined to live a full, fabulous life without shame. From the get-go, she was presented as a force of nature. She was funny, sharp-tongued, and fiercely loyal to her friends and family. She launched the No Body Shame campaign, a movement that became the whole mission statement of the show. Her message was simple yet revolutionary for mainstream TV. Your worth is not determined by your weight. You have the right to exist, to be happy, to fall in love, to pursue your passions, regardless of your size. For seasons, viewers tuned in to see Whitney navigate life with this bold attitude. We saw her start big girl dance classes, providing a safe space for other women who felt excluded from traditional fitness environments. We saw her confront strangers who fat-shamed her in public, refusing to let their ignorance go unchallenged. We followed her romantic relationships, her friendships, and her incredibly close bond with her parents, Glenn, and the effervescent Barbara Babs Thore. The show was a hit because on the surface, it was a feel-good story about empowerment. Whitney was the hero of her own narrative, and her superpower was a radical self-acceptance that many viewers, regardless of their own size, found aspirational. She built an empire on this foundation. She co-founded a fitness and wellness app, No BS Active, designed for people of all athletic abilities. She became a prominent voice in the body positivity movement, a term that has since become a diluted buzzword, but was, at the time, a powerful counter-narrative to pervasive diet culture. The Whitney we saw on screen was a warrior. She was fighting a public battle against fat phobia, and for a long time, it seemed like she was winning. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been made to feel small because of their size. This was the brand. This was the product. A confident, happy, fat woman living her best life. But behind the brand, a much more complicated and painful reality was unfolding, one rooted in a medical condition that had been silently shaping her life for years. The central, misunderstood pillar of Whitney's life story is polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS. While it's been mentioned on the show, the true devastating scope of this disorder is often lost in the reality TV drama. This isn't a simple medical issue. It's a lifelong endocrine disorder that wages a multifaceted war on the body. For Whitney, it was the silent trigger that set off a cascade of physical and emotional challenges she still battles to this day. PCOS is a hormonal disorder common among women of reproductive age. In short, the ovaries can produce an abnormal amount of androgens, male sex hormones that are usually present in women in small amounts. This hormonal imbalance can mess with or even stop ovulation, leading to irregular cycles and, in many cases, infertility. But its effects go far beyond reproduction. One of the most significant and distressing symptoms of PCOS is how it torpedoes the body's metabolic system, specifically through insulin resistance. Think of insulin as a key. Its job is to unlock your body's cells to let glucose in for energy. When you have insulin resistance, the cells don't respond right to that key. They become resistant. Your pancreas, sensing that glucose isn't getting into the cells, goes into overdrive, pumping out more and more insulin to try and force the process to work. This flood of excess insulin is what signals the body to store fat, particularly around the abdomen, and makes losing weight extraordinarily difficult. It creates a vicious cycle. Weight gain makes insulin resistance worse, and insulin resistance makes weight gain worse. This is exactly what happened to Whitney. Before her diagnosis, she was a slender, active teenager and a dancer. But during her first year of college, her body began to change dramatically. She gained over 200 pounds in a single year. This wasn't a case of the freshman 15. This was her body in revolt, hijacked by a hormonal storm she couldn't see or understand. "I gained so much weight so fast and I felt ashamed," she later recalled. She wouldn't be formally diagnosed with PCOS until she was 23 years old. Years after the rapid weight gain had already taken its toll. And the struggle with PCOS isn't just about weight. The hormonal chaos can cause a ton of other distressing symptoms that Whitney has been open about, including thinning hair, excessive facial hair growth, and acne. These are physical manifestations that strike at the very core of conventional femininity, adding another layer of shame and self-consciousness. On top of that, there's a well-documented link between PCOS and mental health. Studies have shown that women with PCOS are significantly more likely to experience depression and anxiety. It's believed to be a mix of the hormonal imbalances themselves and the immense psychological distress of living with the symptoms. So when Whitney says that PCOS makes it harder for her to lose weight, it's not an excuse. It's a biological fact. Her body is fundamentally working against her in a way that a person with a typical metabolism can't fully comprehend. Every pound she has lost has been in defiance of a powerful physiological current pushing her in the other direction. This has been the central, unseen tragedy of her physical life. Being trapped in a body that, through no fault of her own, operates under a different, more challenging set of rules. The public saw a fat woman. But the reality was a woman fighting an invisible chronic illness that was dictating the terms of her existence. Long before the world knew her as a body-positive icon, Whitney Way Thore was a young woman in turmoil, battling a series of severe mental health crises that are inextricably linked to her physical health journey. The confidence she projects on TV wasn't born in a vacuum. It was forged in the fires of deep-seated insecurity, shame, and a profoundly twisted relationship with food and her own body. This part of her story is crucial because it dismantles the simplistic narrative that her struggles only began with her weight gain. The psychological torment started much, much earlier. In a candid admission, Whitney revealed she suffered from an eating disorder for years, long before PCOS visibly took hold. This wasn't something that developed after she gained weight. It was present when she was, by societal standards, thin. She described a period in her teens when she was consumed by the fear of being called fat, a fear so powerful it drove her to both starvation and purging. Because I was never underweight, many people in my life were unaware that I was both starving and purging day in and day out, she confessed. This is a critical detail. It shows that the societal pressure to be thin had already inflicted deep wounds on her psyche. At one point, she lost 30 pounds from her 145-pound frame in just 1 month, a drastic change that drew praise from people who had no idea it was the result of a dangerous disorder. The eating disorder was a secret she kept for over a decade, not even telling her parents until she was an adult, feeling it was more shameful than the fatness it was designed to prevent. This cycle didn't just disappear, even after losing 100 pounds in 2. Uncontrollable changes to her body felt like a confirmation of her deepest fears. The shame she had fought so hard against with her eating disorder had now manifested in a physical form she could not hide. The world now saw her as fat, the very label she had starved herself to avoid. It created a profound sense of betrayal by her own body. Her journey towards self-love, therefore, was not a simple flip of a switch. It was a hard-won peace treaty negotiated after years of war with herself. When she started the No Body Shame campaign, it wasn't just a catchy slogan. It was a lifeline she was throwing to herself as much as to anyone else. It was an active, daily choice to fight against the eating disordered thoughts that she admits may never fully go away. The confidence we see is not the absence of insecurity. It is the courage to live a full life despite it. The tragedy here is the sheer amount of emotional energy she has had to expend just to feel at peace in her own skin, a peace so many of us take for granted. When you're a reality TV star, your entire life becomes a storyline, and for Whitney, her search for love and the dream of motherhood has been no exception. Her relationships have been a revolving door of hope and heartbreak, each one dissected by viewers. We saw the engagement to Chase Severino, which ended in a shocking and public betrayal when it was revealed he had been unfaithful and was expecting a child with another woman. We saw the flirtation with her French tutor, a long-distance romance that fizzled under the pressures of a life lived on camera. These public heartbreaks were intertwined with another deeply personal struggle, her journey toward motherhood. Because of PCOS, Whitney's path to having a child was never going to be simple. We watched her freeze her eggs, a proactive step filled with hope. And in the latest season of her show, which premiered in the summer of 2025, cameras are following her as she, at age 41, embraces becoming a single mother by choice. Her journey through choosing a sperm donor and undergoing fertility procedures like at-home insemination and IUI is a central focus. It's an ongoing process, and she's called it the most intentional act of her life. But all of these televised struggles pale in comparison to the most profound tragedy she has faced. On December 7, 2022, Whitney's mother, Barbara Babs Thore, passed away at age 76. Babs wasn't just a supporting character, she was the show's heart. Her vibrant personality and unconditional love made her a beloved figure to viewers. Her death was the result of cerebral amyloid angiopathy, a condition that led to a series of debilitating strokes. The loss was catastrophic. In the raw aftermath, Whitney shared that her father, Glenn, was so devastated he told her he didn't want to live without his wife. This period of intense grief became an unsuspecting catalyst for a significant physical change. In the year that followed, Whitney lost a substantial amount of weight. When rumors about weight loss surgery or drugs like Ozempic began to fly, her response was blunt and heartbreaking. "I think it's obvious that I have lost some weight, and that is true," she stated. "And people say, like, is it surgery?" And I'm like, "No, it's grief, but thanks." This was the tragic irony of her journey. After years of fighting a metabolic disorder, it was the crushing weight of sorrow that ultimately caused her body to shrink. It wasn't a victory. It was a symptom of her pain. This loss has reshaped her world. Feeling stuck in a rut in her hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina, she made the decision in 2025 to shake things up, signing a lease and moving to a cottage in Salem, Massachusetts, to find a fresh start. This move, along with her renewed focus on creating a family of her own, are the actions of a woman trying to rebuild from the rubble of an unbearable loss. The ultimate tragedy of Whitney Way Thore's life, therefore, is not about her body. It is the universal human tragedy of losing a parent, a pain that fame cannot insulate you from, and a grief that reshapes everything that comes after. The very platform that gave Whitney Way Thore a voice has also served as a relentless engine of torment. Living life under the microscope of reality TV means every flaw, every mistake, and every pound is magnified, analyzed, and weaponized by a global audience. For Whitney, fame hasn't been a shield. It's been an amplifier, turning her private struggles into public property. From the very first episode, she has been a polarizing figure. While many praised her confidence, an equally vocal contingent has relentlessly attacked her, accusing her of promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. The comment section of any social media post about her is a toxic swamp of fat-shaming unsolicited medical advice and cruel speculation. People who know nothing of her medical history feel entitled to diagnose her, prescribe diets for her, and pass judgment on her character, all based on edited snippets of her life. There have been persistent, baseless rumors that she faked her PCOS diagnosis as an excuse. Every on-screen relationship has been labeled as fake, a scripted ploy for ratings. Her business ventures, friendships, and family dynamics have all been picked apart with a cynicism that dismisses any possibility of genuine emotion. The obsession with her body has been the most damaging part of her fame. Before her recent weight loss, she was too fat. Now that she has lost a significant amount of weight, the narrative hasn't gotten kinder, just different. The speculation immediately shifted to Ozempic or secret surgery, with many refusing to believe her when she attributed it to her emotional state. Whitney herself has expressed immense frustration with this relentless focus on her physical form. "I'm still very fat. Thank you for the compliments, but I don't like obsessing over my body," she wrote in one post. She has consistently tried to steer the conversation away from weight and toward confidence, but the public's fixation remains. "Changing your body is not the key to happiness, but changing your mindset is," she shared in 2025, a mantra she has tried to live by. Yet, the world seems determined to define her by her silhouette. This is the cruel paradox of her celebrity. She became famous by declaring that her body did not define her, only to have her body become the sole topic of public debate for over a decade. Fame has forced her to perform her confidence, to constantly defend her existence, and to process her deepest traumas in front of an audience of millions. The tragedy of her fame is that it has stripped her of the privacy needed to truly heal, turning her very real pain into entertainment. Whitney's story is a powerful and often painful reminder that the lives we see on screen are never the full picture. It highlights the invisible battles with chronic illness, mental health, and grief that so many people fight in private. Her journey, with all its complexities, encourages a deeper conversation about empathy. If her story of resilience, in the face of judgment, resonates with you, or if you believe in looking beyond the surface, please consider subscribing and share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Whitney's journey do you find most compelling? Let's try to foster a community that values depth over drama and compassion over criticism. So, what is the true tragedy of Whitney Way Thore? It's not the number on a scale. It's not that she's a fat woman in a world that worships thinness. The real tragedy is the constellation of invisible struggles that have defined her life behind the scenes. It's the tragedy of a teenager whose body was hijacked by an incurable endocrine disorder. It's the tragedy of a young woman so tormented by the fear of being fat that she developed a secret eating disorder that inflicted years of psychological damage. The tragedy is in the public heartbreaks, played out for ratings while a real person dealt with real pain. It's in the deep, universal sorrow of losing her beloved mother, a grief so profound that it physically altered her body in a way years of effort never could. And it's the tragedy of fame itself, of having every one of these painful private moments twisted into a public spectacle, subject to the cruel and endless judgment of strangers. But to label her life as only tragic would be to miss the most important part of her story, because alongside every struggle, there has been an equal, if not greater, measure of resilience. This is a woman who has stared down chronic illness, a debilitating eating disorder, public humiliation, and the deepest grief. And she is still standing. She is still dancing. She is still pursuing her dream of motherhood and actively building a new life for herself. Her story is a stark reminder that behind every edited scene is a human being with scars we cannot see and battles we cannot imagine. Whitney Way. Thore's life is messy, complicated, heartbreaking, and deeply human. The tragedy is what she has endured. The triumph is that she is still here, fighting to define herself on her own terms.